Before I begin the instruction for the meditation practice, I want to say a little bit about breath meditation, just to give a bit of a context. In one way, the practice of breath meditation as we begin the practice, which is what we'll be doing with this instruction, this practice is a very simple technique. There's a few things to do. It can be summed up just in a few sentences, probably. You'd say, pay attention to the breath, pay attention to breathing. When you notice that you've begun to pay attention to something else other than the breath, return to the breath. Keep on paying attention to the breath. That's about it in order to begin. So basically we start with a decision, an intention in our minds. The mind decides to put its energy into paying attention to the breath. The mind is watching the breath. And at the same time, as the practice develops, we become aware that as we're watching the breath is helping us to see the mind more clearly. And it's this aspect of the practice that evolves and develops over time into something very transformative. That the Buddha in the early discourses taught that this practice, when it's pursued and developed to the fullest, can take a person all the way to awakening, to complete freedom from all the sources of suffering in our own minds. So the mind is watching the breath is illuminating the mind, helping us to see the mind, and ultimately to transform it. So that's what we're doing. And there are two qualities that help us do it all the way, no matter where we are, beginning, middle, end of the path, wherever. And the two qualities are the quality of patience, really accepting that where we are now is where we are now, and the quality of perseverance. And this perseverance is strengthened over time as experience shows us that we have reason to have some faith in this process, in the path that this process is a part of, that this is a path that proves itself when tested. So every time we come to sit, you're beginning with that appreciation. We have an intention to do something that's going to help us become less of a source of suffering for ourselves and for others, gradually, over time. And that's something to feel good about. So we beginning just with the simple awareness of being a person who is sitting, a sitting person. That's all. That's all that's happening a person sitting. And seeing what that's like for you right now. You may notice pushes and pulls around wanting or not wanting some aspect of your present experience. This kind of push and pull, wanting and not wanting, is just what the Buddha was talking about when he taught that the sources of our suffering are really just that wanting what we don't have, not wanting what we do have. And you're just seeing that proven out in your own experience in the moment, probably to some degree. And you also may find that for some time it's possible to relax into the just being here now and feel the relief of the weight of those pushes and pulls in that simple acceptance. And we've all known these moments, sometimes with the help of nature often, or just a little moment of grace sitting on the porch, and it's okay just to be there. So here at the beginning of meditation, we invite that quality of allowing presence now, just now. In order to help you settle in and have some ease in just being present now, it can be helpful to invite some attention to the body, starting at the top of the head and then just moving down gradually down the whole body and checking in to notice, are there any places of special tension or holding? If they are there, then inviting them to release, to relax a bit, to let go. And all the way down to the toes. The body can relax into the support of the chair, of the cushion, the floor. And in the same way, we can invite the mind to relax as well. And all the little places of tension or knots, holding, pushing, that are there in the mind. Worries about the past or longings for the future, disappointments, regrets, anticipations, all these things that rattle around in the attics of our minds. Those things can be quiet for the time being. We don't need them now. They are going to help us with our purpose. We're here to be with the breath and nothing else. So we put these things aside. You may even want to think of putting them on a shelf if you're particularly involved with something that is really important. Just reassure yourself that you can come back to that after the sitting period. It will probably still be there. And just for now, just as the body can relax into the support of the seat, the mind can ease and relax into the support of the body. And with a bit more stillness in the mind, it becomes pretty natural to notice the breath when there's not much else going on. Then breathing is happening. And we can just simply be aware of breathing. Breathing is occurring. We can allow that awareness to just naturally emerge. And we can sit with that awareness of breathing. To help strengthen your connection with your experience of breathing, you may find it helpful to select a particular area, a particular spot in the body where your breath is especially noticeable. And just check to see. Perhaps it's the tip of the nose or further up towards the bridge, somewhere in the face, the chest, the belly. Just noticing the place where the in and out the rise and fall of breath, is noticeable to you. And decide that for this sitting period, you'll keep your awareness of the breath focused in that area. And see if this helps your connection with breathing. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In and out. You may like to use these words just softly in the back of your mind, silently. In and out, to help that connection with the breath. When you notice that you've started to pay attention to something other than the breath, gently and with determination, some degree of purpose, return to the breath. Returning to awareness of breathing. There are two qualities of energy that it can be helpful to be aware of as we develop this connection with the breath. And one is the quality of placing the mind on the breath with a kind of a deliberate, strong intention. Now's the time for the breath and nothing else. This is something we mean to do. In the same way that when we place an object on a table, we put a book on a table, we don't put the book a few inches off to the side of the table, kind of whatever. We want the book to be on the table, not on the floor. So we put the book on the table. We put the mind on the breath in just that way. And that quality can be really useful and valuable for helping us get a clarity and a strength to the relationship between the mind and the breath. At the same time, too much of that can begin to feel like a striving or a tension, can even turn into a headache if it gets bad enough or strong enough. So we watch out for that. And then the other quality of the kind of energy that's very helpful for establishing this relationship with awareness of breathing is a quality that is more of an open and receptive quality. It's almost as if the mind leans back a little bit, sits back and lets the breath come to the mind. Doesn't go out looking for it at all. And the breath does arrive at the mind with no need for the mind to do anything to make that happen, because breathing is occurring and the mind is paying attention. So it receives the experience of breathing. Just letting it happen, allowing it to happen. And that kind of ease is really, really important for establishing a good connection with the breath. So if that one becomes too strong, you may begin to notice some sleepiness, some drowsiness, some just sense of a heaviness or thickness in the mind, a lethargy, a woofliness, a kind of cloudiness. So when things are more kind of heading in that direction, it can be time to call up that more deliberate placing the mind energy. So this is part of what we're working with all along as we begin to develop our awareness of breathing. And you can see that we are in tandem being aware of our minds. They go together. So this learning to make a balance, it's something that very similarly to learning something like riding a bicycle, which also involves balance. At the first, when we're learning to ride a bicycle, we have to really think about every little step, every little thing we do. Be careful not to wobble the handlebars and not to lean too far one way or the other. But gradually over time, we get familiar with what balance feels like. And we know so deeply what it takes to get us there that we don't have to think about it at all anymore. It's exactly the same way with establishing this balance in the mind that helps us stay with the breath in a steady, even, connected way. So you can practice with that, placing the mind on the breath, just like placing a book on a table. And then leaning back, sitting back, and the mind allowing the breath to arrive, receiving, open, simply there to be aware of the experience of breathing in as that occurs, breathing out as that occurs, any pausing between the breaths as that may occur. All of this just unfolds with no need to do anything at all except be there for it, be there to receive it. In a few minutes, I'll invite the bell to close this sitting period. Please feel free to continue sitting after the bell if you'd like to do that. When you do arrive at the end of your sitting period, and after you've opened your eyes and shifted back to be more in the present, in the room, with that kind of awareness, take a few minutes there before you get up and go about whatever. Take a minute or two to reflect on the sit. And check in to see, particularly, if there were times that you especially felt connected with the breath, if that you stayed with the breath, maybe without interruption for a few cycles of in and out even. And that's long enough to notice even just 3 breaths with nothing else in the mind but the breath. It's long enough to notice a difference, a change, and see what that kind of change was like. Notice any shifts, any differences in the mind now from when you began sitting. In the body, in the feelings, any changes at all. And if there is some sense of letting go, of more ease, of less disturbance, it can be really helpful to notice that to whatever degree, or however spotty, and to notice how that occurred. At the same time, it is equally valuable to notice the experiences during this sit that were difficult for you, where some sense of not liking what was happening, whether it was in the body or the mind, where something wasn't what you wanted. This kind of experience could teach us a lot. It's a chance to check in on the Buddha's core teaching. He taught that when we're suffering, when we're stressed, it's because we're trying to have something, trying to grasp something, trying to push something away. In some way, we're not just okay with what's happening. And that if that occurred during the sit, that quality of not wanting what was going on or wanting something else, You can check to see, was the Buddha right? Is this a source of suffering for me when I do this? And that information gradually over time, more and more deeply, will inform what we do on every level, which is how this becomes a transformative process. Both the kind of information we get around what helps us feel better, what helps us feel more at ease, more happy, and what actually makes us feel not so good. It's understanding that kind of experience more and more deeply, gradually over time, that generates change, transformative change. At least that's what the Buddha taught us, and that's what we can check out every time we practice. Remembering the patience and remembering the perseverance.